I wanted to ask you, the last two opponents have obviously had some success running the ball against you guys. And, coming up against NC State, they've got several talented backs that are going to want to pound the ball. What have you seen on tape that you're looking to try to shore up this week, especially coming away from Florida State?
It's a great question. I think that the thing that we haven't done a great job with the last 2 weeks is handling quarterback run. And I think when we haven't handled the quarterback run, I think it's put stress on the rest of the defense. So I think that it starts with that a little bit. But honestly, and it's not a very like sexy answer, but like the answer is we've got to tackle better. And I thought the first 2 weeks we tackled really well, and I think the last 2 weeks we tackled really poorly. And so, whether it's better backs, whether it's better O-line, that's probably a combination of it too. But we've got to tackle better, and until we do that, the rest of it's kind of doesn't matter.
Okay, let's go over to Greg Barnes. Go ahead, Greg.
Hey, Jay, you're not the first coordinator to talk about the difficulty of defending the quarterback run. What is the challenge there, and why does that seem to be an issue for everybody?
Basically, it's when you run the quarterback, you got 10 guys to block, right? And so, a lot of what we try to do on defense is try to get a free guy to the ball. And so, when everyone to get a free man to the ball against that, right? There's nobody left, right? Everybody else is either in man coverage or is getting blocked potentially. And so it just causes you problems because, the teams like Florida State and teams like Virginia Tech, I think Virginia Tech does a phenomenal job. They block you really well, and then they make the one guy make a tackle on a really good player. And if he misses, right, normally if we miss, right, then there's a safety or another defender behind him who knocks it down for 8 or 9, and you go in 2nd and 2. Against these guys, when you miss, like the next defender's in man coverage, down the field potentially. And so that creates the challenge, and it just puts stress on your defense. And, when you don't see it all the time. And so you don't build your defense around defending the quarterback all the time, right? Because most teams you play run the quarterback, a very small percentage. So when it becomes that big a part of it, it becomes really hard. And look, the place I previously worked at, I saw it every day. It's a challenge, so you gotta, we obviously have to do better against it, but it's a challenge.
And Mac also praised Trey Morrison for his play in the game. I know you moved him back to nickel against Florida State. What's the value of having a guy like that who's versatile but also productive?
Yeah, I can't say enough about what we asked that kid to do. Like last week we were like, do we play him at corner some? Because he's just, I have confidence in him wherever we put him. And the thing about him is he's a really good football player. Like the interception was a great play. And it's a drop that, he didn't, we had a very similar play in the first half. He didn't have a great drop. We talked to him about it and he fixed it. Right. And when a kid can do that, you got a really good player. So, I'm excited to see him this week and see, how we can use him this week to get him to the ball.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, Aaron Beard, go ahead, Aaron.
Jay, what did you like best about what your defense did after halftime, especially considering they had given up such a quick scoring drive right before the break?
Yeah, I think the drive before the break was the one that ultimately, you don't like giving up any touchdowns, but that was really disappointing, that drive. So I challenged them, and I said we're going to see what we're about here a little bit. You're down 31-7, and I told the defense yesterday, I don't know how many teams I've coached that would be down 31-7 and play as bad as we played in the first half that would come back and battle like we battled. So, I was proud of them. But, the first thing I told them was we're not changing anything. Like we tweaked a little bit how we fit a run, but I said we just got to go out and play better and play harder. And I thought we played really hard. I thought we played with really great effort. I thought we were out of control at times. We've got to learn how to play hard and also play, under control. But I was proud of how they competed in the second half, and I think our eyes were better in the secondary, and hopefully we made a step forward from there.
And to follow up, Max cited the 19 missed tackles. Is there one thing in particular about the missed tackles that you think is, I guess, the easiest part to fix? Is it angles? Was it just wrapping up? I mean, is there one thing in particular?
Yeah. So we talk all the time about bad misses and good misses, right? So a bad miss is when I lose leverage, right? Leverage is advantage, right? And so if I've got inside leverage on a ball carrier and I miss on the inside, the rest of the defense is still hunting with the thought that I maintain leverage. And Saturday, against Florida State, and give them credit, right? Because the more talented you are, the harder this is to do. Especially on Jordan Travis, a couple of times we missed and lost leverage. And so the rest of the defense is tracking the ball, anticipating the ball to be delivered to a certain spot. And then when it crosses our face, that's when it's bad. And so that for this week, Aaron, that's a huge point of emphasis for us is to try to maintain our leverage and chase the ball inside out and use the force defender and use the sideline. And I think when we've done that, we've played really good defense here. And I think that's the number one thing we can improve on to get back to it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Andrew Jones, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, staying on that last drive at the end of the first half, of all the things that did go wrong, what was maybe the main thing that went wrong during those 5 snaps, I think it was?
So, I mean, the last 2 plays, were schematically were things that we had covered that we felt really good about going in the game, and we didn't get it done in the secondary, and it wasn't, it was things where we identified a tendency based on a formation, and we were asking kids to play a certain way, and we didn't play it that way. And so what happened is we ended up wasting some manpower, right? If we're gonna have a DB push out and help you, and you don't align yourself in position to use the help, shame on you. And so we gave up the long one, and then the last play of the game, the last play of the drive, we had a pressure on that we didn't get run correctly, and we let the quarterback escape. And all week long we talked about we've got to keep him in the pocket. We got to keep him in the pocket, and we called a certain blitz based on trying to keep him in the pocket, trying to blitz from his right hand, and didn't get it done. So I think those are the things that fall on me, right? I'm obviously not getting that done, and we got to do a better job with it.
Going over to Chaz, a point of emphasis that you talked about and he talked about in the offseason was improving his work on angles. Through 4 games, have you seen any progress in that area?
I have, but there's still more to do. And when Chaz plays that way, he's really hard to deal with. And I think he's so fast to the ball that sometimes it's hard sometimes. But a linebacker, you've got to tell them you've got to pace yourself to the ball. And I think he's done a way better job of that. But there's still some that he missed that I think he can improve on.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, CL Brown, go ahead.
Hi, Jay. I was curious what you consider to be the more difficult team to game plan for the situation like Virginia Tech, where you've got a number of different guys who you've seen play, but you just don't know who they're going to roll out, or a game like this week where the starting quarterback goes down and you're preparing for a backup who maybe just doesn't have a lot of tape on him. I think he made 2 starts, Bailey Hockman.
So first of all, I'll say this. I think Bailey Hockman's a really good football player. And he moved the ball against us really well last year when he played. And he beat Wake Forest and played against Virginia Tech and has played, came back and led them to a touchdown against Duke. So I think him, and obviously, it was, the injury the starter had was awful. And that kid was playing at a really, really high level. So, I think, I think Hockman's a really good player. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference in their offense with him. He's left-handed. That's about the only difference, really, I think. But when you're getting ready to play somebody like we were getting ready to play Virginia Tech, and we didn't really know who was going to play quarterback, that's a little bit more of a challenge. Just trying to have a number of different game plans and situations, but I think Bruce Lee said this, right? I'd rather face a guy who's practiced one kick 1,000 times, right, than a guy who's practiced 1,000 kicks one time. So I watch the NC State offense. I see a bunch of really veteran guys that have done things the same thing over and over again that do it at a really high level. So that part's really scary to me.
And going back to the tackling for a second, when you're in practice and don't, like, this isn't like maybe 20 years ago where you would be more physical every day in practice. How are you able to correct, the tackling mistakes when you're not physically going through the repetitions maybe as much?
Yeah. So I think we've gotten smarter as football coaches, and I don't think you need to tackle to the ground every play to get good at tackling. And understand this, when we talk about our kids tackling, it's not an effort. It's not a physical. It's more of an angle and a finish the play situation. So we work on our angles, and every time the ball's in space, we work on our angles. And so I think that's the point of emphasis. And the other thing is, as a coaching staff, we're committed to it. That's the first 5 minutes we spend every day. And, the more talented team, the more tackles you're going to miss. Right? But it's the good misses versus bad misses. And that's where we've got to improve. And I think we can do that in practice, probably even better now because the ball's in space more than it used to be.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
All right. Last one for Coach Bateman comes from Ross Martin.
Hey, Coach. The last two games, 500 yards rushing against y'all. What have you seen on tape you'd like to improve on outside of the missed tackles, maybe schematically, personnel-wise, that you've seen that's kind of exposed your run defense the last two games?
Yeah, I mean, there's some schematic things for sure, Ross. I got to do a better job getting, certain guys, freed up to the football. Some of our better run defenders. We probably need to be a little bit more multiple to a couple different looks than we've been. So that, that I think that starts with that. But I think there comes a point too where like you've got to get off a block, right? You've got to, if you're supposed to defend a certain area of the field, you've got to defend that area of the field. And I think we've got great kids, and I really feel like they've pressed for whatever reason the last 2 weeks in the run game. It's like, and I don't know if it's a byproduct of the first 2 weeks having such little success in the run game against us that it was like we give up a 6-yard run and now everybody's starting to, oh Lord, and like, hey, they're going to get 6 yards or 7 yards every so often, right? Just maintain your gap. And I think we've had some issues where guys have been in really good shape and then they're trying to make someone else's play. And like I tell them all the time, the play doesn't care who makes it, right? Just do your job, the ball will find you. And I think that's what we need to do a little bit better job of. And it's some of our better players. And I appreciate them wanting to be, do more. And coach, I know it's going there. Like I appreciate that, right? But you've got to do your job and the ball will find you. And I think that's our mindset going forward right now.
And then you touched on this a little bit, but halftime adjustments. I mean, what is your mentality on changing one or two things? I mean, what goes on in the locker room when you want to change a couple of things, how you approach the halftime conversations in that short amount of time to make the changes you want to make? Yeah.
So I think I would say most games we go into a plan where we're going to try to save something for the second half, whether it's a coverage, a blitz or whatever. If we think going in, it's going to be something that we're going to get a lot of. I think a tribute to our kids, like the last 2 weeks, we've gotten some stuff that we have not seen before, right? So we've seen, some formations and some personnel, groupings that we hadn't seen from that offense before. And so now we've got to go back and kind of stick to our guns a little bit and get back into a little bit more base defense. And then at halftime, we're able to go through with them. And I think it's kind of happened in Florida State was, all right, listen, dude, this is the same as this. And I think once we settled them down, I thought we were a lot better in the run game in the second half. And so, I think it depends on who you're playing a little bit, but, part of it is fixing problems you've had, new things and how you solve those new things. And then other part of it is go to the second part of your game plan, whatever that might be.